Hey there, this is Wythe Marshall from the Stillfleet Studio. We put together a little podcast called Why We Roll, and now we're very proud to be part of the network Podderation. So if you're listening to one of Podderation's other great shows, and you're interested in TTRPGs specifically, that's tabletop role-playing games, you might be interested in our show. Why We Roll is all about how you make TTRPGs, what makes them fun, different kinds of stories you can tell with TTRPGs, and even the business, so the practical advice side. So if any of that sounds appealing, whether you're a GM, you want to design your homebrew game, or you're interested in getting in the industry, why don't you head over to Why We Roll, check us out. We really, really appreciate it, and keep making awesome stuff.
Hey, Bandit, me and Fred's got a question.
What do you and Fred want?
How come we doing this?
Well, why not?
Well, they said it couldn't be done.
Well, that's the reason, son.
3 movies that have changed your life.
How long have you been a robber?
4'1".
Good Lord. Jolly good. 4'1".
Yes.
Well, that is a long time.
3 movies that have changed your life.
John, I want this material burned. All of it.
Welcome to another Britflix.com podcast. My name is Stuart Wright, and today's returning guest is former radio TV producer turned author, now about to become media mogul again, David Nolan. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, you're all right. Am I allowed to come on twice? Is that okay?
People have been on 4 times.
Oh, right. I'm just a baby then, yeah?
You are. We are here to talk about your new venture, Cult Manchester, and talk about 3 movies that changed your life. Does that sound like what you've signed up for?
For once, yes.
You haven't added your own little dogma to this list, have you, again?
I mean, I might do. And I think there might be some discussions about the difference between American and British film titles, which I will be taking you to task about.
Well, I have got facts. If that's okay, I have got
to prove
facts.
Anything with facts.
And we are journalists talking together. We do deal in facts, don't we?
Sometimes.
Let's start with a description then. What is Cult Manchester, and where do people find it?
It's I don't like the word webzine because I think it sounds a bit weird. It sounds slightly childish, but I suppose that's what it is.
Yeah.
And like most things in my sort of professional life, it came about through being annoyed about something.
Right.
And which is very much a theme with me. Things that annoy me get me fired up. And when I was doing, I did the memoir books and my music books and things like that. And you do interviews with websites and this, that, and the other. And it would be, to promote an event. And I was doing one in Manchester, and the article, which I'd, given a great deal of time to, appeared in a factory records stylee 5 days after the event happened. So I thought, and I literally said to a guy, no, we should just do our own. And an hour later, I'd had it all mapped out. And then literally 9 weeks to the day, it's now up and running.
Yeah. So in that sense, then, what is in Cult Manchester then? If it's an online fan webzine, magazine, online content provider, what is Cult Manchester for?
Well, it is, I suppose, for people who are slightly disenfranchised like me, and it's very much made after my own image.
Okay.
So I've poached a few people from here and there to write with it, and I've got a young guy writing for us who's doing the kind of the gig stuff. And he said to me, "How will I know if something is cult or not?"
Okay.
And I said to him, "Mate, it's cult if we say it's cult, right?"
Okay. This is a bit like Mag Noir, isn't it? Because you've said so. It's true.
Absolutely. You will it into life. So it is cult sounds, cult visions, cult words, cult shows. And some of it is old stuff, some of it is now stuff, and some of it is stuff that will be now in next year.
Okay.
So it is. So the first kind of the what's the word they use? Tent pole. That's the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tent pole story was. I found a thing that the Sex Pistols had done that nobody knew about, and some photographs of it that nobody had seen for 50 years.
Wow.
And that was our kind of tentpole story, our first one.
Can I just ask then, in 2026 parlance, what does mean I found?
I found?
Yeah.
None of your business, Stuart. No, I'd love to say that it was a dogged and determined piece of trench coat wearing journalism.
That's what I was getting at.
But as is often the case,
Mm.
somebody just contacted me and say, I don't know if you're interested in this.
Oh, wow.
And it was a set of photographs of the Pistols at Manchester's famous Piccadilly Radio. And the guy was just a young kid at the time who was like, oh, that's that band, and took some pictures of them and then put them in his bottom drawer and then found them 50 years later.
Go away.
And he thought, Sex Pistols, Manchester, there's only
Nolan.
one person to contact, Sir David of Nolan. And so I had these, and then I had other couple of stories that were...
Can we just add, David, for those that don't know Sir David of Nolan...
That's me.
Why would you be the person to go to for Sex Pistols fun facts?
That is a reasonable question, actually, because one of the books that I've done is called I Swear I Was There, which is about Sex Pistols playing at the Leicester Free Trade Hall 50 years ago, in 1976, and I tracked down everybody who was in the audience. So if people think about the Pistols in Manchester, they tend to think of me. So the guy just literally contacted me and said, oh, I don't know if you'd be interested in these. And I thought it was a joke at first, because I thought, this can't be real, because otherwise I would know about it.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's the wonderful thing, because obviously now we walk around with iPhones and Samsung phones or whatever, and we're taking pictures of just, our feet, let alone passing cultural zeitgeists and stuff.
Yeah.
So if that's a tentpole for what Cult Manchester was in the past, stretching that elasticity to 2026, what is a tentpole for Cult Manchester today that you could expect to see in Cult Manchester's?
It is, we're very interested in kind of amplifying bands and events and comedy and music that is at a small scale.
Yeah.
So we'll have a gig of the month, we'll have a book event of the month, we'll have a comedy show of the month, we'll have this, and we'll use it as a way of amplifying things. So our first band are a band from Australia who somehow are landing in Manchester to play a gig at a tiny place called the Pier Hat, and they're dead cool, and they look cool, and they sound cool, and the flyers are cool. So there you go, it's cool, and we'll have it. So we're amplifying stuff like that at the same time as, and with the Pistol story, I tracked down everybody who was in the room, in the studio when the Pistols arrived in town.
Yeah.
And I've got another one coming up, which is to do with Ian Curtis, which is another one to do with 24-hour party people. Yeah. So the tentpole ones are, well, I never knew that. Yeah. How come I never knew about that? That's the kind of criteria for the tentpole stories. And then the other stuff, we kind of build around it. Where basically, if we think it's cool or not. If we think it's cool, it goes in. If we don't think it's cool, it doesn't go in. As simple as that.
So how can wannabe Cult Manchester people who are in the here and now make themselves known to you so you can wave your judgment over them?
We're on it's not judgment. It's not judgment. No, actually, you're right. It is judgment.
If you say it's Cult Manchester, then I think that pretty much defines judging.
It is somebody contacted me today with something. I won't say what it is, and straight away I was like, nah.
Well, look, I have it with the podcast. People say, "Can I come on?" And I'm like, no.
No, you got standards, haven't you? Obviously, it's on Instagram, it's on your Threads, it's on your Blue Sky, this, that, and the other. But we have just opened up our online presence, cultmanchester.co.uk, which is our very, very nice website, which is literally just opened up. And, you can contact us through that. But mainly, stay a while, because, the writing's really good. And I'm just looking at the stats, actually, and people are staying. People are not just flicking around and going away. People are staying and reading the stuff, which is what it's there for. It's proper writing, and but with a kind of a Buzzcocks, let's just do it ourselves energy, which I'm a big fan of.
Well, I suppose. I mean, I remember when Manchester had City Life, which obviously was its own sort of idea of focusing on what was happening culturally in Manchester. And Manchester's obviously a big enough and booming city to have somebody focusing just on Manchester rather than Manchester just being a footnote in a national news story. I think that's kind of it.
Yeah, but we're not just focusing on Manchester. We're focusing on cult Manchester.
Yeah.
So it is, and what is cult? It's whatever we say it is.
You said an Australian band's coming to Manchester. That makes it Cult Manchester. That's great because it's about all comers welcome, as well as being about a kind of parochial view that Manchester might be cool.
Yeah. So City Life, but without, for anybody who, you will remember this, I know, but City Life, but without that undercurrent of snidiness that City Life had, which I wasn't a big fan of. And they would just have a pop at things because they just felt like it. Whereas,
I live north of Manchester Victoria Station, so I never saw City Life. It never travelled further than that.
You wouldn't have actually been allowed to buy it. So,
despite being in Greater Manchester, we weren't allowed.
No, absolutely not. So yeah, that's kind of snidey. If we don't like it, if we don't think it's cool, we just won't look at it or write about it or amplify it. You don't have to put it on a table and stick a fork in it.
And what about Cult Manchester contributors? Are they an exhausted list, or are you still on the lookout for people to get involved and lend their voice to you?
Never say no to anything if it's cool and interesting and culty. And we're asking people. We're having, like, as well as the kind of core team of writers, we've got like guest cult members. And our first one is Paul Hanley.
Okay, of this church.
Of this church. So Paul's written us this really funny thing about his top 10 favourite gig venues ever in Manchester. Really nice thing that he's written, and so he's our very first guest cult member. So we're going to have that as a running theme as well, which is asking people, I tell you what, why don't you write it? Why don't you write it rather than it coming through the filter or the lens of me or somebody else?
Yeah.
Why don't you do it? And also, particularly with women's stuff, I've got my wife, Catherine, who's a very experienced journalist. I'm getting her to do all the women's stuff, because why should it come through a filter or a lens of a man, i.e. me?
Yeah.
So I'm getting Catherine to do that. So she's doing like women artists, women photographers, women broadcasters, and it's done entirely through her lens, not my lens, which I think is really important.
Excellent. Well, let's remind people then, where can they find the website then that's the home of Cult Manchester? It's
www. Yes. cultmanchester.co.uk, and then it's Cult Manchester across all the socials as well.
Brilliant. Well, I'll put links in the show notes so people can find it easy enough, and we shall move seamlessly into 3 movies that changed your life. And we're obviously going to start with a fight over a title. But before we do, I'll just explain for those people that have come here for the first time. David has given me 3 movies. I'm going to do them in the order that he's given me, and every time we get to the end of 5 minutes, we are going to hear this sound. You can hear that at your end, okay, David?
Oh, yeah. It's like a fire alarm going off.
Right then. The clock, it be ticking. And the first movie is written and directed by one of my screenwriting heroes, Walter Hill. 1975's The Street Fighter, a.k.a. and really called Hard Times, starring Charles Bronson, who did most of his own stunts as a drifter who turns to illegal bare-knuckle fighting to survive the Depression-era New Orleans that he finds himself in. The producers were going to release the film under the title The Street Fighter, but when the now cult classic martial arts movie starring Sonny Chiba was released with the same film title in 1974, they reverted to the original screenplay title, Hard Times. Walter Hill was so impressed with his leading man that he wanted him to star in his next film, The Driver, but he turned him down, reportedly due, which I didn't know this, to ill feeling that had built up because Hill had cut his wife, who was then his co-star in Hard Times. And sadly, they never spoke again. So tell me, David, why is this film so memorable for you?
Right. So when I went to see this at the cinema, it was called The Street Fighter.
Was it?
It was a post. Yes, there was a poster outside the cinema called The Street Fighter.
Amazing.
In fact, I've sent this poster to you to prove that it was.
I didn't doubt you. I was just telling you what the producers have said afterwards.
Don't care. It was called The Street Fighter, and I went to see it. So when it came out, I would have been about 11, right? And it was a AA. And my dad had this thing of getting me into the cinema, which was he would look the lady on the ticket counter in the eye and say, he's 14. He's small for his age and he's embarrassed about it. Try not to make a thing about it. And that was his shtick, he's embarrassed about it. Don't say anything. So I would go and see 14 films when I was like 10 or 11. And then I would go and see X films when I was like 13. And he would do the same shtick.
What a great system.
He's 18. I know he looks young. He's embarrassed about it. Don't say anything. So I went to see this with my dad when it came out. The pictures, it was double A, and the poster outside, a beautiful poster of Coburn taking the coat off Charlie Bronson's shoulders. The Street Fighter. That's what it was called in this country. There's no doubt about it. And I watched it again recently with my daughter, and it's a surprisingly slow-moving film.
It's a wonderful film.
It's a wonderful film, but quite slow, apart from the sort of 4 or 5 kind of fight set pieces, which are all, most of them, apart from the last ones, are kind of quite short, actually. But yeah, that first scene where Bronson rocks up with his cap, and Bronson is in a cap is something else. It's amazing. And he looks like the 1930s. He looks like the whole of the 1930s in one cap and one face.
He has a face that's lived a life, doesn't he?
Totally, yeah. And he sparks out the first guy in 10 seconds. Not even that, 5 seconds. And I just remember being in the cinema thinking, wow, is this what AA films are like? Fantastic. Amazing. And Bronson looked, he was in his 50s and he looked amazing. And although I believe that he was a heavy smoker, so he could only do like the fight scenes for about 30, 40 seconds at a time because he didn't have stamina, although he looked amazing. And it just it was the first kind of, I suppose, grown-up film that I'd seen. And because of this, the thing that my dad did of getting me into the pictures by lying. And it just, and the feel of it and the vibe of it. And you watch now, and it's, the oyster shelling factory as a scenario. James Coburn's doing his kind of grinny James Coburn thing. Stover Martin's doing his Stover Martin thing. Jill Island's doing her usual kind of slightly dead-eyed thing, which actually works in this context, I think. And yeah, it's weird how I was so blown away by it because I've watched it quite a few times and thinking this is actually quite a slow, stately, steady film. It's not it's not The Driver or anything like that. It's so for a young kid to be blown away by what is quite an arty film, I was quite impressed with actually. And Coburn's great, Bronson's great, Martin's great, Jill Island is Jill Island, and the set pieces and the fighting are cool as.
So when you say pictures, what pictures are you taking to?
What the local cinema? We had like 2 proper local cinemas where I grew up, and they were great, proper flea pit cinemas. Great, lovely.
Well, there's our 5 minutes, sir. We did well.
Yeah. The Street Fighter, the Street Fighter, the Street Fighter.
Well, in the screenplay that's titled Hard Times that I have, the original title, it's really fascinating the reason why it's such an interesting read compared to, say, another screenplay is that what Walter Hill did, which was an innovation in screenwriting, was like for those fight scenes you're talking about, like usually you've seen a where you have slug line where it says interior office day. Stuart sits at his desk in front of a microphone looking straight at his screen. That would be what we describe it as. He would say fist as a location where the location would be, and then he would sort of choreograph a punch in his action, which is way too much detail, but also it was very light on detail. So when you read it, it was like reading a haiku compared to a normal screenplay, and it was like joyous. And Driver's an even better example of that kind of style. But
I'm going well over the 5 minutes here, aren't you?
I'm allowed to. It's my show.
Just in this country, it was called Street Fighter, and then in its later lives, they adopted the American. You don't see that anymore, do you? You don't have. It's like Top Cat and Boss Cat.
You do. If you look at, it's more to do with some titles don't translate. So a French title, when it goes for it, and then you translate it back into English, it's not the same title at all. Can't think of one as I say that, but yeah, I remember there being a few like that. But anyway, sir, Second up is Brian Usner's directorial debut, 1989's R-rated dark comedy body horror Society. Dubbed one of the most disturbing movies ever, this notorious class war gorefest situates an ordinary teenage boy who discovers his family is part of a gruesome orgy cult for the social elites. Brian Usner claims that he back-engineered the film's plot points based on special effects ideas or gimmicks, stating he was more interested in surrealism of the story than the logic, which could be a cop-out in some senses, but then you read that Salvador Dali's autumn cannibalism and soft construction with boiled beans was used as inspiration for the film, which is where we get the sight of Charles Lucia as Buttface. But tell me, David, why is Society such a memorable film for you?
Well, like, a bit like The Street Fighter, it's one of these ones where I saw it in slightly unusual circumstances. I was very big in the 80s going to the Scala Cinema in London.
Okay.
Watching back-to-back films, entire evenings, days, nights, lost to watching back-to-back films. And we had a thing in Manchester in the late 80s, early 90s called Black Sunday, which was based in Ashton-under-Lyne cinema, which is not as glamorous as it sounds.
It certainly isn't.
And it was in there, and it's just some local lads who would put on this horror film festival. And I would go along and thinking, oh, right, this is a bit like the scale of this when I moved back to Manchester. And halfway through the evening, I didn't know anything about any of the films, and they showed this film called Society. And if you watch it at 3:00 in the morning, in the middle of a marathon of about 8 films, it's quite the experience. And I was just blasted away about it. And I was called, this is hilarious. And it is as subtle as a flying mallet, that we are literally feeding off the poor. And the effects are fantastic. It's shot like an episode of Beverly Hills 90210. It's got that kind of flat kind of
yeah. It's a very, very video sort of shot in it. It doesn't feel like film.
Yeah, it is. And Billy Warlock's in it, who was in Baywatch, which again adds that kind of unexpectedness because you're not expecting him to be in a film like this is.
Yeah.
Which is, bizarre, incest, slug eating, sex orgy, screaming Mad George special effects craziness. You're just not expecting it because it doesn't look like that. It looks like Beverly Hills 90210. So I think it's funny. I think it's clever. The effects are fantastic. Kind of like the last great hurrah of practical, effect, old school effects.
Yeah.
Before the 90s properly kicked in and the digital stuff and all this. It's all the real deal. And I was kind of slightly obsessed by it for a while. I kept all the press kit stuff because I worked at a radio station at the time, and they'd sent electronic press kits, and nobody was interested in this film at all. It just disappeared, and I tried my best to kind of amplify it and go on about it. And I loved it then, and I love it now. I think it's hilarious. And again, I watched it with my daughter. She was like, "Well, how was that?" And I didn't tell her anything about it. How was that? Are these from outer space, these slug people or something? And it's a very hard film to describe, but it's a very easy film to enjoy.
Yeah, because it kind of sets it doesn't deliver the punch until it has to, and then once it gives the punch, it just rolls over you because you kind of like
it just keeps punching you.
Yeah. There's no apology for what it does. I mean, if you've seen The Substance, which came out a couple of years ago, you can see the huge influence on that of Society.
Absolutely, yeah, it is. It is almost slightly embarrassing, actually. Because you don't want to be that grumpy guy. Same with music, isn't it? You don't want to be that grumpy guy who's going, I've seen all this before. I've heard all this before, but it's very difficult not to in this circumstance. And you can imagine, because it was like, 89, just right at the rag end of the 80s, going into the 90s. And you can imagine a lot of people who are making films now who saw this at a particular time.
And that was, you said that was the Black Sunday lot put that on?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they came to Whitefield and did a zombie all-nighter at the Mayfair.
I saw some fantastic, I saw Spore Loose.
Yeah.
I think on the same night, The Vanishing, amazing. And that I think The Vanishing might have come after it. So you imagine watching the Vanishing and Society like back to back at 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah,
That is an absolute head shag.
well, they did a zombie marathon where where the sort of centerpiece was the remake of Night of the Living Dead, and so we were watching the original '68 one, then Dawn of the Dead, then Return of the Living Dead, and so on and so forth. And they were meant to have. I'm trying to think now whether it was I think it was Tom Savini or Sam Raimi was meant to be coming to talk to us in Whitefield, which would have been a coup. But sadly, they didn't make it from LA to Whitefield. Instead, what they did, they went up on stage with their answer phone in their hand, put the microphone to the answer phone, and played us the message of the director going, "Sorry, I can't be with you. Enjoy the film."
But they did get some cracking guys. I interviewed Jörg Buttergeit there.
Yeah.
The guy who made Necromancer.
I had Head Press On celebrating 35 years just recently.
Yeah. And also Norman J. Warren. I interviewed him as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they got some really good guests.
Right then, sir. For your final choice, we are taking one hell of a tonal hard shift from the last film. Lois Patino's shape-shifting voyage, Samsara, from 2023, a drama about a Buddhist teenager's daily visits to an elderly woman to read her the Bado Toldal, I think you say it, a guide for the journey between death and the next rebirth. On her last day, the teenager whispers the book's final passages in her ear, closes his eyes, and meditates alongside her as she embarks on a transformative journey into what lies beyond. The Guardian's Peter Bradshaw lauded it for asking the audience to consider the taboo subjects of death, but without the traditional mood accompaniments of sadness and acceptance, whereas his colleague, Wendy Ide, said it was unlike anything else you can experience in the cinema. So, David, it's a pretty recent film to be having a movie that changed your life. So why would a film to someone so battle-scarred by culture have such impact on you?
I didn't know a great deal about it. I saw it. I was in Newcastle, had some time on my hands, went to the cinema in Newcastle and went to see this. Oh, this was interesting. And yeah, just to brace it, it's a young lad left looking after an old elderly woman who dies and then is reincarnated as a little baby goat on a seaweed farm by the sea. That's basically the plot of the film. But when she's reincarnated, that's the bit. So it's very beautiful to look at, this, that, and the other, and it's kind of gentle and sort of semi-documentary style. And then this woman dies, and she is reincarnated, and we are instructed to close our eyes. Okay, in the cinema.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this is the king. So I've seen various descriptions of this of being 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even 20 minutes, where you have your eyes closed, and then you experience the transition with her as she is reincarnated. And the way it happens is through sound, and I'm closing my eyes now, and the fact that you can see things moving in front of you through the skin of your eyelids. Okay? So you've got to close your eyes for whatever it is, 15 minutes, whilst this goes on. And obviously you can't help yourself. You do sneak a little peek just to see what's going on. And it's basically dancing, moving colours on the screen. But because you can kind of slightly sense them through your eyelids, that's the kind of effect that it has on you. Oh, wow. And it's like being hypnotized during a film. It's the only film, I've seen, scratch and sniff John Waters films and all this kind of malarkey. But I've never seen a film before where you're asked to close your eyes for 15 minutes. And it's kind of mesmerizing. And unlike the other films, Street Fighter, Society, which I've both seen loads and loads and loads and loads of times, and I'll probably watch them again loads of times as well. I've only ever seen this film once, and I'm never going to watch it again because it won't match up. Like so many things in life, it won't match up to that first experience of it.
Yeah.
It's a psychedelic experience, but without the drugs.
I must admit, now you've told me that it makes a lot of sense in terms, because I've not seen the film, so I was really reliant on the descriptions from the people who'd written about it. And yeah, I think they talked about 12. They did. Now that makes sense. Now they talked about 12 minutes of nothing on screen and things like that. And I was like, but they don't say the film instructs you to shut your eyes, which is quite.
Yeah,
I mean, why
it's
does that not? I mean, I'm guessing it takes you out of the film, but obviously it's part of the film at the same time, isn't it?
No, it doesn't take you out of the film at all. It grabs you and pulls you in.
Really?
That's what it does. Yeah. So this caption comes up saying, "Now we're going to accompany her on the journey. Close your eyes." And to be in a room full of other people who go, oh, "Okay then, yeah, I will," and they do, which is amazing. But the screen doesn't go blank. There is things going on in the screen, but you're only experiencing them through the semi-translucence of the skin of your eyelids. So it is trip. It is a trip. It's a psychedelic experience that you're having in a cinema with loads of other people closing their eyes. And so the screen doesn't go blank. There's lots of things happening. It's just that you don't look at them with your eyes. You look at them with your eyes through the skin of your eyelids. That is cult.
Yeah, no, it's almost like I'm in that horrible position now of you describing something wonderful that is in my mind's eye that unfortunately probably can't be as good unless I get to see it in a cinema. There goes 5 minutes, but I finished the thought. I've kind of spoiled it for you in a way. No, that's not a problem. But it is just that idea of you've described it so well as an experience, because obviously film, when it's at its best, it takes you in and you're there until the credits roll, and then you come out the other side, whether it be Street Fighter or Samsara. And then you can kind of, when you walk into the foyer, you're back in the real world, aren't you? And you kind of go, right, okay, what was that jumbled up thing that's just messed with my head?
And that's what all three films have got in common, I think. They're all kind of like, when you finished, you turn to the person next to you and go, flipping heck. in one form or another, you say flipping heck.
Yeah.
And that's what they've all, and that's what it should be to be. How many films do we watch where you can't even remember what it is or was or much about it half an hour afterwards?
But I also think those films are part of the reason why Samsara and Society and the Street Fighter stick out, is that if everything was as brilliant as those three, then those three wouldn't have the impact, would they? You kind of have to, we have to have, Brotherhood of Man to appreciate the Sex Pistols, don't we? It's like,
but also just be careful, because there are several other films also called Samsara.
No, I did see that there's a few titles. So for the audience, make sure you get the 2023 version, directed by Lois Patino. Spanish
absolutely.
director.
Otherwise, you'll be going in the cinema there and going, "Do we close our eyes yet? This is the bit where we close our eyes."
I mean, this is going to sound like a crass comparison, but there's a Hammer horror film that literally stops because it's a murder mystery, and a card comes up and asks you to go, "Who's the killer?" I'm trying to think which one it is.
Or is it a William Castle film?
Pardon?
That does. Is it a Hammer film or is it a William Castle film?
No, it's a Hammer. It's a 70s Hammer one. It's full colour.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
My mind's gone blank.
Bring that back. Bring that stuff back. I'm thinking of the where it's thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah.
Where William Castle gives you like a thumb up, thumbs down card, that kind of stuff. They showed the one where the skeleton comes out and dances around. They showed that at Stockport's beautiful Plaza Cinema quite recently, and they reproduced the skeleton bit. So I'm all for that. I'm all for this kind of like, oh yeah, this is not just passively sitting and watching a film. I should
add as well. I'm glad to see that Greg Walker's Cultplex is very much seems to be part of your Cult Manchester family.
Yeah, if it's got the word cult in it, we're on it, But yeah, it's Cultplex is like, it's a cinema which is like an industrial kind of garage unit in the bottom of Cheetham Hill, and that is to cinema what the White Hotel, which is a venue in near Strangeways, is, and and we're the kind of website equivalent of them.
Yeah,
they were. I feel very kind of joined at the hip with those kind of places, literally and metaphorically.
Let us remind people then where they can find Cult Manchester.
On the worldwide internet web, cultmanchester.co.uk, and on Instagram and on Threads and on Facebook and on Blue Sky. We don't do the other one because it doesn't align with our values. And just check it out. And it is like, the idea is you look at it and you go, well, I never knew that. And that's the kind of, it's not the snobbiness of it, but I literally said to somebody today, there's half a dozen other sites that will cover this story. Therefore, we're not going to, because it's if you can find it somewhere else, then we're not doing our job properly. So it's cult. When I say it's cult, if we say it's cult, I'm not doing that flippantly. There's a great deal of thought goes into this.
Yeah.
Just as much thought goes into what we don't put into it as what we do put into it.
Well, we do spend a lifetime curating our own taste. So if we can't form something to talk about culture and not decide what we think is important at that point, then we've failed, haven't we, in some sense?
But yeah, if you're into what you do, Stuart, and if you're into those if you like the two films I've just mentioned, and the third one has tickled your fancy, then you'll like Cult Manchester.
Indeed. Well, look, I'll put links in the show notes and the various social medias for people to click on. And thank you very much for introducing us to Cult Manchester, and thank you very much for sharing 3 movies that changed your life. It just gives me to say thank you for giving us your time on the podcast.
Cheers. Street Fighter.
Hard times.
Hey, Bandit, me and Fred's got a question.
What do you and Fred want?
How come we doing this?
Well, why not?
Well, they said it couldn't be done.
Well, that's the reason, son.
3 movies that have changed your life.
How long have you been a robber?
4'1".
Good Lord. Jolly good. 4'1".
Yes.
Well, that is a long time.
3 movies that have changed your life.
John, I want this material burned. All of it.